Today on CityCast Nashville, it's time for our Friday News Roundup. Do you know what congressional district you're in now? State redistricting has thrown the map and a bunch of prospective candidates into chaos. We'll get into who's running and where. We're also talking about a major change at Metro Legal and why 12 South parking has gotten out of hand. And in our special bonus segment, Hell Nah, do we really need 84 more hotels? It's Friday, May 15th. I'm your executive producer, Whitney Pasterek, and this is what Nashville's talking about. CityCast Nashville contributor Nicole Williams. What congressional district do you live in now?
I live in the 6th congressional district.
Are you sure?
Yes, I did check on the little map that the Tennessee Secretary of State put up. I'm not convinced that it's necessarily 100% accurate, but until directed otherwise, I live in the 6th congressional district.
Yeah, so do I. Congratulations. This is obviously all about the new congressional map that was drawn during the special session that concluded, was that just last week, where state Republicans took advantage of the Supreme Court's decision to gut a crucial part of the Voting Rights Act and eliminate the last remaining majority-minority district in the state of Tennessee, casting everything into chaos. Folks, if you live in Davidson County now, you're either in District 4, District 6, or District 7. 5 is gone.
Well, it's gone, but not forgotten.
No, could never be forgotten. Yes. And if you live in Williamson County, which you may be in earshot of my voice, Andy Ogles is still currently your problem. But more importantly, I think we need to look at the people who will now be running, because today, Friday, May 15th, is the deadline to have turned in a qualifying petition in order to run for any of these newly drawn congressional seats. And so we're not going to know this morning who's done it. So some of these will just be speculative, but I want to run down the list so everybody kind of knows where we're at. So let's start with District 4. That's currently held by Scott Desjardins, who, despite what Eli Monica and the Nashville Scene characterized this week as, quote, credible reports that he pressured sexual partners into abortions and had extramarital affairs in his workplace, has held that seat for quite some time. There are some Democratic candidates who have qualified to run against him. Those people include Victoria Broderick of Fayetteville, who's been organizing in that district for 2 years, and Metro Council member Mike Cortez, who had been planning a run in District 5, but has now switched to 4, which includes his home and his council district. Nicole, how do we feel about him running against a fellow Dem who has been organizing in that original district for so long?
Well, I think that's what primaries are for. You know, if he has the juice in the district, he'll win the Democratic primary. The whole thing is that everything is chaos now. So people are running on vibes, simply getting by day to day in this new existence of ours. And he had planned to run for Congress. I will say I kind of appreciate him switching from 5 to 4, because technically you don't have to run for the congressional district in which you live.
Right.
Like, he could run for any congressional district in Tennessee. And in other states, like, we've seen people do that. I think Lauren Boebert did that. She just ran in a district that was going to be easier for her to win in Colorado.
Yeah, and I also think it's always interesting when one of our council members decides to run for a higher office, because it sometimes changes the timbre and tone of what they do at council and what they choose to use their floor time on. It certainly seemed to change Courtney Johnston when she challenged Andy Ogles a couple of years ago.
Well, when she showed up to council. One thing in Councilman Cortez's favor is he has been showing up to council, even though he is running for Congress. And I think you've seen him speak more and use his floor time as sort of an opportunity to get people more familiar with him, you know, like the 5 people who are watching Metro Council meetings.
Well, let's talk about District 6 now, because, man, it's a hot one. Replacing our current representative, John Rose, who's running for governor. By the way, did you see his new ad?
It was playing in the Dairy Queen where I was with my dad yesterday, but I did not watch it.
Meanwhile, Republican Johnny Garrett, who was sort of the presumptive successor to John Rose, got drawn out of the district, although, to your most recent point, Nicole, it doesn't matter where you live. You can just go ahead and run now. But that means that Van Hillary is also running now in that Republican primary. He's the former U.S. congressman for the former District 4. And I think that this might set up some interesting fireworks over there on the Republican side. And then also, I just wanted to point out another person who has qualified as a Republican is Natisha Brooks, who we know as a woman who most recently ran for mayor of Nashville. She wears hats.
Yes.
She's qualified as a Republican. And then on the Democratic side, there are a whole bunch of people on the list, but not very many people have qualified so far. The people who have qualified include Lori Bergman, who did run against John Rose in the last cycle as a Democrat. She was on our show talking about sort of the stress and strain of having to drive between Nashville and Cookeville back and forth, and just the exhaustion of trying to cover that whole district. I don't think the district got any smaller. And then Cheney Mosley, who had already been in the race for this seat prior to the redistricting, and he's one of the people who joined the lawsuits against the state over this redistricting. So those two have qualified. There was a lot of will she or won't she speculation surrounding former Nashville Mayor Megan Barry, who pulled a petition in the 6th District. According to Stephen Elliott of the Nashville Banner on Blue Sky late yesterday afternoon, she has decided not to run, saying, quote, "It's not the right race for me. I still hope the courts will put a stop to this chaos." And then I just want to highlight one more person who has pulled a petition. And based on what I saw last night, he will qualify today, is that my friend, Angus Purdy, who ran against Tom Cash for the council seat in 2023, he is running as an independent. He was out last night at the East Nashville meeting getting a ton of signatures on his petition. I'm not going to endorse. I just sit here and talk pretty. But I'm very proud of my friend for stepping up.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this across the board. And it's something that State Representative Afton Bain really captured in some statements she's made. Like, people are enraged. And that rage is fueling a lot of folks to consider throwing their hat in the ring or to just go ahead and do it. Because you only need 25 signatures, which is kind of crazy low for a congressional district.
Well, and also Angus last night said that the Secretary of State's office had said they don't have to live in the district. They just have to live near the district this time around. Yeah.
They're just like, it's too chaotic. We don't even have the resources to figure out.
And then finally, District 7. I feel like we've been talking about the Tennessee 7th Congressional District for like a full year now, just nonstop. As of right now, only 2 candidates have qualified, and they're the same ones who had qualified prior to the redrawing of the district. That's current Representative Matt Van Epps and Democrat Joshua Warren Sales of Pegram. People are saying, I hear them talking, that Democrats might have a shot here with the new maps. Why would that be, Nicole?
Well, I think what we're seeing across the country is that anytime either Democrats or Republicans are making these pushes to gerrymander their congressional districts, at a certain point, by like dispersing the vote of the opposing party, you run into an issue where like it gets a little dicey for the party in power. So this new 7th congressional district, the split in the 2024 election was actually much closer than in the other new congressional districts in Nashville. And based on Afton Bain's performance last year in the special election, I think people are sensing that there may be a path for Democrats in this district.
Well, we've got a bunch of petitions that have been pulled. None of these people have qualified as of this taping. Darden Copeland, who's a consultant, and State Rep Vincent Dixie, both of those men ran in that primary last year and lost to Afton Bain. So this is an interesting rematch. And then there's one more name on the list that, Nicole, I know you and I are both eager to talk about, and that is District 19 downtown council member Jacob Coupin has pulled a petition to run as a Democrat.
I thought he was an independent.
Well, according to a recent post from him on Blue Sky, he is an independent, and that came in defense of his appearance at a fundraiser for a Republican candidate who is running against Shondell Brooks in her state house district. People said, "What are you doing there supporting a Republican?" And he said, "I'm an independent." I texted him last night to check in on this. You know, I thought you were an independent, and he told me He doesn't feel he fits in a box or a label, but rather a set of ideals. And as such, he does identify as independent. And he pulled a Democratic petition because as a longtime Democrat, he is most aligned with the values of the Democratic Party. He also told me he has not decided yet whether he's going to run. We do know, however, that our council members run as nonpartisan, right? Those are not partisan offices. I think we as Nashvillians like to try to put them in boxes. Does it surprise you that Councilmember Coopin might identify as more independent than Democrat at this point?
It's a little frustrating because to me, that statement, all I heard was, there is not a path to win as an independent. And it's just easier to be one of the two major parties.
Another better question is, do we think that the people of Dixon, Cheatham, Montgomery, Robertson, Sumner counties are going to want to be represented by the guy who's the council member for downtown Nashville?
No, full stop.
Which to me is the problem with these maps, is that we're saying somebody who is in charge of this very specific thing that has very specific needs is now also going to be asked to represent Dixon, which is a very specific thing that has very specific needs. And whether it's Councilmember Coopin or anybody else, I think we are going to be hard pressed to find candidates who can walk and chew 27 pieces of gum at the same time.
It is my absolute favorite time of year again. And if you've never been to Musicians Corner in Centennial Park, now is your time to go. Honestly, there is nothing else like it in Nashville. It's a totally free, multi-genre concert series that's been bringing people together for nearly 2 decades. It's super laid back and family friendly. Bring your dog, bring the kids, throw down a blanket, grab some food, and just hang out while listening to the most incredible live music from local artists and beyond. It all happens Friday nights and Saturday afternoons through June 13th with food trucks, artisan vendors, drinks, and more. This year's lineup includes Maddie Diaz, The Verve Pipe, Amanda Shires, John Paul White, S.G. Goodman, the Nashville Symphony, and a ton of other amazing performers. Musicians Corner is produced by the nonprofit Centennial Park Conservancy and supported by CityCast Nashville. Visit musicianscorner.com for the full lineup. Hey y'all, quick question. If you're going to spend money on your home, don't you want it to actually count? Because here's the thing, experts say windows retain up to 80% of their value. So upgrading your windows now isn't just about comfort, it's a long-term investment. And if your current windows are builder grade or just old, you're probably losing money every single month through higher energy bills. But no worries, that's where Window Nation comes in. They build custom, high-quality windows, measure 3 times to make sure everything fits perfectly, and their crews can install them in just 1 day. And here's the good news. Window Nation's Buy 4 Windows, Get 4 Free sale is going on now. You could literally replace your entire home's windows and get half of them for free. They have installed over 3 million windows, have tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, and back everything with a lifetime warranty. But hurry, the sale ends soon. Don't wait to put an end to your window problems. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com.
Director of Metro Legal Wally Dietz announced yesterday that he will retire on July 16th. After a little over 5 years on the job, Mayor Freddie O'Connell has tapped former public defender Tyler Yarbrough as his replacement. And yes, that last name is because she is married to Jeff Yarbrough, current state senator.
And former candidate for mayor.
I think home rule, the concept of home rule, really kind of defined Wally Dietz's tenure. You know, he walked into the original fight over school vouchers that had been implemented by Republicans just in Nashville and Memphis. He and his office have needed to sue the state over things like control over the airport authority and the sports authority and the size of our Metro Council. Nicole, how do you feel generally that he and his department have done during his tenure in terms of sort of defending the city from some of these state attacks?
So far, we've seen success in several of those attempts to defend the city's ability to define its own operations and manage.
Local control, if you will.
Yes, local control. I do think we're going to see a loss whenever we hear from the Tennessee State Supreme Court about the size of the Metro Council. I also think like these lawsuits to an extent become performative or even like mooted when you just know that the Republicans are going to rewrite the legislation so that it doesn't have the same pitfalls.
Right, like they've done with the airport authority. They've taken that over again, but this time they just fixed it by taking over everybody's airports. It's cool.
But, you know, I think it is important to feel like we have someone like fighting for the interests of Nashvillians.
He had an interesting quote in the banner. He had a conversation with them about his choice to retire. And he said, quote, "I personally am coming to the conclusion that the legislature as a whole, as it votes on these anti-local government bills, may not be a reliable partner for Metro going forward." To which I say, no doy.
Let's bring back no doy. I love that.
I have long since come to that conclusion.
It's been that way. It seems as though it will continue to be that way. So, you know, pearls of wisdom upon his departure.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's talk about some other highlights from Director Dietz's career. He did successfully defend Choose How You Move, the transit referendum, against the people who were suing because it included sidewalks or whatever. So that was good. Mm-hmm. He did succeed in getting millions in federal grant funding back after the Trump administration had pulled them. And then recently, his office has also filed amicus briefs defending birthright citizenship and access to abortion pills. But we must mention also some lowlights. I'm going to start with, and I'm just going to throw these out and just, Nicole, your first reaction. The Community Oversight Board.
So we used to have a Community Oversight Board. The state abolished it. People said, Metro, why aren't you suing over this? And Director Dietz said there wasn't a path. Womp womp.
Womp womp. Let's go now to Metro Arts funding. Do you remember this one?
I sure do. Director Dietz and then Finance Director Kevin Crumbo riding in on their white horses to save who from whom?
I believe they got a direct call from Will Cheek of the Cheekwoods.
Yes.
Saying this new arts criteria that enables more funding to go to BIPOC and women-led organizations is bad for us.
Wally, look into this. And he did, and he continued, and to this day probably continues to cite a report from the external law firm that Director Dietz says concluded that the Arts Commission acted unlawfully, but the report in question never even talks about the actual decision of the Arts Commission.
Fun fact on that one, do you remember who was the lawyer who represented Metro Arts through that whole thing? Tyler Yarbrough.
Wow, I'd forgotten that. Okay.
Yep. Moving on to another local department, let's just talk briefly about the Office of Homeless Services budget hearing that took place this week. We want to shout out Mike Lacey, Metro Watchdog, as usual, for watching that and sending over some takeaways via his Substack. I think there's something that I really want to dig into here just briefly in what Director April Calvin requested. Now, remember that this is a department that is still under audit for $3.2 million in financial irregularities. Housing placements have gone down. Homelessness, according to the 2025 annual point in time count, has actually increased by 4%. And we still don't have the point in time or PIT count numbers from 2026. Those were supposed to go to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development in April, and no one's seen them yet. So we don't actually know where we stand this year. But Director Calvin has requested in this year's budget hearing $2.7 million for connecting with, quote, downtown initiatives, MNPD, or even nightlife outreach efforts. And she says that this downtown initiative will help to increase tourism, increase city revenue, and secure safe housing options for our most chronically homeless individuals. Nicole, why is increased tourism the first thing on that list?
Maybe that's all we care about in Nashville.
We're going to get into that a little later.
I think another thing to note is that the size of the department, which used to be a division under Metro Social Services, has more than tripled. So in addition to, you know, putting a lot of funding from the American Rescue Plan Act and just the additional funding to like create a new department, the size of the staff has ballooned, and we're really not seeing that much of a difference in our outcomes.
They're going to continue their non-traditional rapid rehousing dollars. Those got spent by moving hand-picked people outside the continuum of care system into housing, some of whom were then promptly evicted because the rapid rehousing dollars stopped paying their rent. That's now been renamed as Metro Rapid Response Funds, or MRF, as I like to call it.
MRF.
And MRF has been rolled into a $2 million line item for community case management funding. So let's hope that we are continuing to find houses for people, but that we're doing it in the right order. And I don't know. I've given up on trying to come up with stuff to say about this department. It drives me bonkers, folks at home.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating, and it feels a lot like talking out of both sides of your mouth when Director Calvin talked about how the coordinated entry process is too rigid and too limiting because it forces us as a city to focus on the people with the highest need first, which is, listener note, that's the entire point. And then to say that actually before she got here, all we were doing as a city was housing the easiest people to house,
right,
despite the fact that we were using coordinated entry. So like those things can't really both be true. I'm in favor of having a flexible funding ability. Like I don't think, particularly in dealing with an issue of this magnitude, I don't think that everything needs to be so rigid. However, I'm also in favor of transparency, which this does not allow. It's kind of like a slush fund, and we don't really know until it's already spent what's going on with it.
In fact, she told Mike Lacey that she does not want transparency with these dollars. She would prefer if he did not post the receipts.
Yeah. And then also, she doesn't want to take ownership of failures. She blames failures on community partners, but successes, she wants to take credit for the successes of the various programs.
Well, this is just going to be an ongoing bugaboo from me, folks, because, you know, this is a Metro department. This is our tax dollars. And if it's being mismanaged, we deserve to know. And people need to stay on this. I don't think it's good enough for us to just say, well, they're being audited. Doo-doo-doo. Like, what is happening? And how is it impacting the lives of us and our neighbors? Republicans passed a bill during this year's legislative session requiring every sheriff in the state to enter into a 287G agreement with the federal government to enforce immigration law. There were plenty of concerns about how this would impact us here in Nashville. And after consulting with Metro Legal, our sheriff, Darren Hall, seems to have found a loophole in which the 287G requirement does not apply to him. Please explain.
Okay, I am obsessed with this story. So essentially, like TLDR, state Republicans can't write a bill that actually does what they want it to do. So the bill was written such that post-certified sheriffs are subject to these requirements. Post-certification is what like law enforcement officers get.
Yes, it's the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission.
And so all police officers are post-certified. Typically, like the leaders of law enforcement agencies would be post-certified. But the way that the sheriff's office functions in Davidson County, they're not involved in law enforcement activities. And so Sheriff Darren Hall is not post-certified and is not required to be post-certified. So joke's on the Republicans, it doesn't apply to him.
Oops. He also told News Channel 5 that, you know, he thinks this is all politics. And to Sheriff Hall's credit, he has been complying with state law on immigration efforts to the extent that he is required to. He says that over the last year, 632 individuals who were arrested on local criminal charges were transferred into ICE custody from Metro jails. So he is upholding the laws that apply to him.
And not the ones that don't.
And not the ones that don't. I think it's also interesting that Metro and the Sheriff's Office recently filed a motion in circuit court to require that the Tennessee Department of Corrections answer for the fact that they've basically abandoned some of their inmates in Metro jail. And Metro is claiming that our indefinite housing of those inmates has cost the city more than $5 million. So, again, our sheriff does his job.
Yeah, the state is not doing its job.
I want to talk about something else. I think it's an awkward fit here under good news, but I do think it's good news that people are actually coming together and trying to talk about something instead of just yelling at one another. The situation with 12 South parking has gotten out of hand. This week at the Traffic and Parking Commission, there was a massive hearing because the thought was that they're going to implement 2-hour parking limits on 12 South. They've also been implementing residential permit parking on the side streets. And, residents are furious because all the people coming down to shop at Lululemon are blocking their driveways, and employees and business owners are furious because they don't have any place for themselves or their customers to park. It's a really messed up, hard to fix situation. And I appreciated that they've deferred this whole thing for 60 days so that hopefully they can come up with solutions that work for everybody. I personally think that the street belongs to everybody and you should be able to park on it. But I also know the frustration of having somebody blocking your driveway.
Yeah, I really appreciated watching this hearing and watching how thoughtful and deliberate the business owners, the employees, and the residents were. Typically in hearings like this, emotions are heightened, frustrations are boiling over. It feels like residents versus business owners. That clearly was not the case here. And I think that speaks to the work that the business owners, the local business owners in 12 South have done to build relationships with the community. Everyone realizes it's kind of a cluster over there and everyone wants to work toward a solution. It's just a mess. And I was really happy to see such a thoughtful and deliberate hearing.
Just really wish that there had been a little bit of foresight before we turned 12 South into America's premier outdoor shopping mall. But maybe they can get ahead of it now. So good job, everybody. Keep talking. Let's fix it. What are we doing this weekend? Well, Musicians Corner kicks off tonight with Sunny War and the Foxies. Tomorrow they've got Howie Day and Gustavo Moradel.
Wait, Howie Day of Collide fame? Oh my gosh, this is peak millennial core. This is like a soundtrack of being a millennial.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's exciting.
That was a big point of contention on Blue Sky over the weekend was what is and is not a song that solely belongs to millennials. Y'all can have Howie Day. I know nothing about him.
He used to date Ashley Simpson. They had a reality show.
Wait, no, I do know who that is now.
He had the spiky hair.
Well, they all had the spiky hair.
Yeah, in the 2000s.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's exciting. Musicians Corner is great, y'all. It's free. Get out there, bring the kids, bring the dogs, bring a picnic, enjoy it, or eat at the local food trucks. We'll be out there on May 24th for Maddie Diaz Day. What? We're so excited. It's also the Tour de Nash tomorrow, which is Walk Bike Nashville's annual fundraiser / citywide bike ride. They've got options for different lengths of loops. I think they're going to be closing some streets for this, especially downtown. I think I would just encourage anybody who encounters the Tour de Nash, please do not hit them with your cars.
Try not.
There's too much of that going around.
Way too much. And don't let that infect our good news segment, Whitney.
I'm not even going to bring up the protest that me and my dog participated in Germantown this week, demanding safe streets now. There's the Rosé Festival in East Park, which I will not be attending now that I know that you have to wear pink. I'm not doing that. And then both the Nashville Sounds and Nashville Soccer Club play on Sunday. NSC still in first place, handed the New England Revolution their asses on Wednesday night, 3-0 up in New England. And then the Sounds are also looking good, but that's not really the point. The point is food and beverage at Sounds games. So get out there and enjoy those. All right. Well, this has been terrific, but it's time now to move on to our special weekly bonus segment. Marie is on vacation, and I know she's going to be sad because she's been working on a jingle and she won't be able to include it here. Nicole and I are going to talk very angrily, I suspect, because that's the point of Hell Nah, about the news that 84 new hotels are being planned or are currently under construction here in Nashville, Tennessee. And so if you'd like to listen to this segment and you're not already a CityCast Nashville neighbor, hit pause right now. Head on over to membership.citycast.fm. Smash that join button. It's $10 a month, $100 a year, and you get to hear this bonus segment, as well as lots of other fun stuff that we do around here. You don't have much time because we're about to start the segment. All right, Nicole, that's it. We did it. We did it again.
We did it.
It was just the two of us. We hope Marie is having an amazing time in Florida. We wish we were with Marie having an amazing time in Florida.
Is she at the beach? I want to be at the beach.
She is at the beach, and I'm just so jealous. But listen, it's going to be a beautiful weekend here.
Yeah.
I'm going camping. Me and Wally, now that he's calmed down about the hotels, me and Wally are going out to Percy Priest to camp on Saturday night. That'll be fun. Come stalk us. Have a hot dog.
That's your affordable hotel.
That is my affordable vacation. $35
Yes.
at the Anderson Road campground, people.
Yep, love it.
Can't beat it. That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and listen to the bonus segment and get other great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. Our creative producer is Marie Cecile Anderson. Our producer this week is Katie McMurrin. Our CityCast Nashville newsletter editor is Margaret Kingsbury. Our theme music is by Prof Jenkins with additional music by Andy Ellison and Ryan Inlow from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. And if you enjoyed the show, here's a crazy idea. Why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our CityCast Nashville newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Y'all take care of each other.